So at some stage you will have taken photos of a group of people, maybe a sports team or an office photo or just a group of friends, where you'll have a look at it afterwards and there'll be someone that looks weird. They might be squinting or closing their eyes or something like that, and you might be thinking, if only I had have taken more than one photo and I could kind of get the best of everyone. So you need to get into the habit of doing that. So when you are photographing, particularly people, there's a couple of things you need to make sure when you're doing it so that you can do some post-processing in Photoshop. One is make sure that you are shooting them against a still background. If you're shooting them against a background like traffic, it's not going to work because the background needs to be static and still. And two, when you shoot, just hold your shutter down for a few extra seconds just to get a few extra shots, because someone blinking is like a tenth of a second. So if you take a short burst of photographs, you're bound to get a photograph of that person not blinking as well. So you want to just get a variety of photos to choose from. So what I've got here, I'm just going to show you first, is I've got two photos, and I took these against a static background, and I took them just in a short burst, two photos, 1, 2. And so that's the one, and that's the other. And so the background is static, but you can see that I didn't use a tripod, and so the background moves slightly in the different photos. And the people are slightly different. Now, I'm focusing on the baby here. Now, I like the baby's face in this photo. He looks more cute. And in that photo, he's kind of looking away from the camera and down. So what I want to keep this photo, but I want the baby's face from this photo. All right, so how do we do that in Photoshop? So the first thing is we need to load these photos into a stack. In other words, into one document as layers. And you can do that using a script. So File, Scripts, Load Files into Stack. I'm going to browse. I will go and find those two images. Here they are. Select them and add them, and then OK. So now what Photoshop does is it just loads those two images into one document as layers. So I can hide and show the top layer, and I can see that the bottom layer contains the baby's face that I prefer, and the top layer contains the people's faces that I prefer. And the problem is that background is actually jumping because I didn't use a tripod. So what I need to do is I need to align the pixels in both of these layers first. So what auto align does is it analyzes the pixels and it lines up those pixels that don't change between the images. That's why it's so important to have a static background, or mostly static background. So I'm going to select both layers, and I'm going to go to Edit, Auto Align Layers. And Photoshop says, well, help me a little bit here. Tell me how these photos were stacked together or taken. So I'm going to actually just say Auto here and say OK. And it's going to analyze, and then it's going to adjust the position of these photos so that the background is aligned. So if I hide and show the top layer now, you can see only the people move. The background mostly stays completely aligned. So that's exactly what I want. So now what I'm going to do to get that baby's face from the bottom photo is I'm going to select the top layer, add a layer mask, and on the layer mask, remember black hides, I'm going to paint black to hide the baby's face from the top photo and reveal the baby's face from the bottom photo. So I'm going to take my brush, make sure it's on black, make sure I reset the brush tool, and make sure that the hardness is set to 0, and then I want to set my brush size up. Okay, mine is set to 400, so that I've got, maybe that's a bit big, and then I'm just going to start painting, but making sure my opacity is at 100 here. So I'm literally painting a black area on the layer mask to reveal the layer below. And it's kind of like magic, this. Okay, so you can see the way what I've done is I've taken a layer mask that contains that and hidden the top layer for just the baby's face. So it's basically just erased or hidden a hole in the top photo so that the bottom photo is visible. And that's how you work with multiple photos to get the best of everyone in a photo. Take a photo burst and then load files into Stack and then add layer masks once you've done your auto align, and you're good to go. Alright, so that's one way of using auto align and blend. The next way is creating panoramas. So if I go back to my files here, you'll see that there's a folder called Durban Bay Pan. And if you have a look at it, it's a series of photos I took from left to right, overlapping. So it's 7 photos and quite significantly overlapping of a sunrise. So what I want to do is I want to join these all together into a panorama. Now I know that all phones these days can handle panoramas. However, they're not going to give you the same quality as a proper DSLR. So if you use a proper digital camera with a proper high quality lens and you shoot very high resolution photos, you want to be able to stitch those together to make a panorama just like your phone does. So back in Photoshop, I'm going to go File, Automate, Photo Merge. Now it says, how did you take these photos? So you've got to help Photoshop by saying, how did I take them? So if I took them from left to right and I just overlapped them, moving horizontally, that would be a cylindrical motion. So that would be the shape that I'm going to choose, cylinder. Then I'm going to browse and I'm going to choose those photos. And I need to set up some things here. I do want to blend the images together. So even though it's going to align the pixels, I don't want to see any joins. So it's going to blend them together. And then I also want, if it has to warp the image at all, I want it to automatically content aware transparent areas. So content aware fill transparent areas so that the whole image is filled. And that's it. So now I just press OK. And it's going to take a little while to load all the images into a stack, to analyze them, to align them, to blend them, and then to content aware fill them. Okay, and there it's done. So I'm just going to deselect, and now you can see that's a very high quality panorama. So if I have a look at the image size here, this image is 9,240 pixels wide. So if I was to print this at 300 pixels per inch, I would be able to print it at 78 centimeters wide. So that's a pretty high quality image, much higher quality than what you would get off your smartphone. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel and see you next time.